So I'm going to sort of broadly take us through three areas. First of all, I'm just going to remind us of some of the site constraints. And those of you who came to the earlier presentations and also to the public consultation back at the end of 2019 and beginning of 2020 will be familiar with these, but I'll just set them out briefly. And then I'm going to take you through a brief summary of the previous consultation, just to remind us of some of the conclusions that came from that. And then I'll be talking primarily about the proposal and the proposed design solution. So if you want to click on. Okay, so the site, the building remains in the position that it was presented in the centre of the site, and that's the current position which is shown in the grey object in the middle of the image there. And one of the things about this site, when we mentioned this in the presentations last year, is it does have a lot of constraints. Some of the key constraints are, obviously, it sits behind a seawall, and it sits in a flood zone, which is important, and the continuity of that seawall. It sits on this interface between the water's edge, the quay, and the yachting pontoons, but also sits in front of and adjacent to residential properties, many of which will be your properties, and has a number of listed buildings adjacent to the site, as well as obviously the needs for vehicle access and car parking, and therefore it's quite constrained, particularly between the two car parks, for the need for those car parks to be of an appropriate size and to work allowing public access through to the quay, but either side of the building, and easy legible access from both town and for the visiting yachtsman. And there's a whole host of other technical kind of considerations which come up in the detail, which will no doubt come up later. But fundamentally, to say it is a constrained site, and we're seeking to try and balance all those issues as well as the programmatic and design issues internally within the building as well. If we can click on. So early in 2020, you hopefully recognise the image on the right. The public exhibition was held in Lymington, and we presented a series of boards that explained the background to the project, but fundamentally they presented two broad options. And if we can just click ahead to that. So what we showed on those boards, just to remind you, and I'm going to zoom in on one of them in a moment, but fundamentally we took you through some of what Bob's already introduced, and then we showed you images and floor plans of two options, both located in the same position as the existing building. But one of the options was called the pitched roof option, and the other was called the habitable roof. And the result of that engagement process back in January was that 81% of people preferred the inhabited roof option. And so that is the option which then, if you like, progressed, and we began to develop towards a planning application in March. But that was obviously put on hold because of the outbreak of COVID. So that project was then picked up again in September, and has then really been refined from there as we've sought to try and square the budgetary issues and get the balance of ingredients right in the project. But the design that has progressed is the proposal for an inhabited roof, and it's given us a chance as well to respond to some of the kind of concerns that came out in the detail. So things like, how is the inhabited roof controlled? Can we or can we not achieve disabled access? To that roof. So there were a range of sort of challenges that were presented to us at that time, and we've sought to, and we hope now have resolved some of those concerns. So Bob, if you want to just click on again. So just to remind you in a bit of detail, you can see these images a bit more clearly. The pitched roof option was an undulating roof running parallel to the water's edge, and that created a covered seating, benched seating area, but no inhabited roof. And the shower facilities faced to the north towards the quay and towards the pontoon access, and the toilets were on the other side of the building. And at that time, the building, the shower facilities contained relatively significant lobby space, and then the showers were all within that and accessed off that lobby. And then the toilets, if you remember, were on the southern side of the building, and they were all individually accessed in a straight line of doors along the southern side of the building. And then up on the roof with a staircase at the front, from access from the quay, there was access up onto a roof terrace. And there were a number of concerns raised about that in the detail. So although the overall prevailing response was 81% positive towards inhabited roof, some of the legitimate concerns raised were things like how to control antisocial behaviour, particularly in the evenings, whether or not the possibility of disabled access could actually be achieved, and the issue of privacy from adjoining properties and the potential for overlooking back towards those properties. So I'll explain in a moment how we believe we've resolved those issues. Okay, so Bob, if we can click on. So picking up to where we are with the proposed design, if we just click through, and we're gonna kind of go through the floor plans first, and then we'll go on. So if we click on again, Bob. Okay, so here's the site plan. Fundamentally, not a lot has changed on first impressions from the original scheme, but actually quite a lot has changed in the detail. The biggest change is that we now have a larger proportion, or a reasonably significant proportion of the building allocated for use as a cafe / bar, effectively a habitable element within the building that allows people to physically enjoy using that facility, and adding some active frontage onto the quay, as well as generating revenue. What that has allowed is not only an activation of the waterfront, but it's also, very importantly, now allowed a controlled access to the roof terrace. So it's combining that roof terrace with that cafe facility so that it can be managed, but also improving the revenue opportunities that presents. It then also allows us to get a lift access. So you'll see in a moment we have a lift access to the roof. And then behind that, addressing to the north and to the south, addressing onto the two car parking areas and the pedestrian access zone, we have a run of showers on the quay side, on the north side, facing the access from the quay and the pontoons. And then on the southern side, as before, we have a run of toilets. And then we have 6 toilets and 6 showers. And then we have 1 disabled toilet with a family changing facility, and we have 1 accessible shower facility. So Bob, if you just want to click on, and you'll be able to see a bit more of the detail. So you can see here in the slightly more detailed plan, the showers are all set, all the doors are set within a recess within the building, so that as the doors open outwards, they're not obstructing the pedestrian route through to the quay. The little wall that runs along the side of that access ramp, we're looking to remove part of that wall up to the point where it becomes a seawall, and introduce some bench seating, and then deal with the level changes through a series of steps, allowing greater permeability between the car park and the quay. And that will be particularly important on occasions when the car park is used for events, and also in terms of the future public realm works we're talking about. The building obviously needs to be serviced and has quite a significant amount of servicing, and we are looking to try and achieve a carbon neutral building from an operational energy perspective. And so we've got plant room running down the middle of the spine of the building, and then we've got space on the roof for solar heating and potentially solar panels. And then the seaward side of the building, you can see the roof terrace out over the edge of the quay, the recessed part of the quay, making the most of that recessed area that sits off the primary or quay, linear quay space, and allows us to have a covered outside seating area, and then a roof terrace seating area which enjoys views, and I'll show you some images of that in a moment. And then we've got staircase access up onto that roof terrace, and the lift access up onto that, and that then forms a physical visual barrier between the houses behind and the inhabited roof. So there's no opportunity for overlooking, and obviously that also helps to contain noise and views. And then finally, we've got on the ground floor, just at the back of the building, on the southern side, we've got a small bin store, which is integrated into the side of the building and provides additional bin storage for the visiting yachtsmen and also for the cafe space. Okay, so if we go through now a series of images, so if we can click on, and there's just a series of images that give you a feel for the building. So the building is as before, clad in a pre-weathered hardwood timber, so similar to the kind of teak cladding you'd expect to find on the deck of a nice quality yacht. The roof terrace parapet and the space we need for recessing solar panels, etc., so they're not visible from the street scene, sit within the depth of that parapet. So there's a timber element that forms the sort of horizontal element over the top of all the accommodation, as I say, which contains the roof terrace and the plant space. And then underneath that datum sits the glazed cafe facing the quay, and then recessed into the side of the building in a contrasting colour are all the toilet doors or shower doors, depending on which side of the building you're on. And then the building is curved and softened, and it's a sort of lozenge form on the ends, so it just softens into the context and also allows people to flow round the building. So both ends of the building are curved off and just softens the form at its edges. What that also does, of course, is open up the amount of light and view around the building, as well as helping the pedestrians to flow around it smoothly. So if we just click on, and I'll go through a series of different viewpoints. So this is now looking the other way, back down the quay, back towards the ship. And you can see the overhang. The overhang actually is in a sense exaggerated because it overhangs over the glazing. So half of that overhang is contained within the cafe and is where you can see the glass, and then half of that overhang covers the little area of outside seating. And then on the top of the building, there's a frameless glass lantern that contains the circulation staircase and the lift, and that's all housed in a frameless glass element, so it's as discreet as possible and reads like a lantern in the evening. There'll be an element of backlighting to that, but it's obscured glass facing the quay road and facing back towards the properties, so there's no ability to see through that when you're inside it. If we click on again, so this is now looking from just coming off the cobbles and looking back across the car park, looking south. And you can see the way the building, as we've often said, frames the view. It doesn't necessarily give you a view because, as we've often felt, there's not really a view from this far back. You can just see the tops of the masts, but you know there's a view coming. And the idea there is that the kiosk draws you to the point where you get the access to the waterfront, and it draws you through and kind of hints at the views down the river that are about to open up for you. One other thing to say as well, this is just visible in this view, the building does result in two trees being removed, and the intention is that one of those trees gets planted back in this phase, and then an additional 2 trees would be in the future phase in any kind of public realm works. So there would be a net increase in trees overall by the end of the public realm works. If we click on again. So looking now from the south, and you can see the toilets are set back within a recess. The doors open towards the quay, so there's privacy from the residential side, and you can see the curvature there, the way that enables people just to flow round the end of the building and round into the entrances to the toilets. That's all then set back behind a bollarded protection, so that people coming in and out of those toilet doors don't need to go into the car park at all to move safely around the building. Sorry, Bob, I don't know if that's gonna...
Sorry, Paul, I didn't quite catch you. What did you say?
Sorry, yeah, click on again, that's fine. So just a few close-up views now. So this is coming up towards the building from the north, and you're moving up towards it. You can start to see the doors to the showers are very legible. And if we click on again, and then now you're getting drawn down the side of the building. The wall that currently separates and blocks off that access is now more open, so that people can flow more smoothly through that junction, and it's less of a funnel through linear walk, but slightly more of a flowing, more permeable experience. If we click on again, and then here is the kind of elevated view The intention being that both from within the cafe and from within the roof terrace, obviously you get really pleasant views down the river, and elevated views, giving you the opportunity to look down onto the boats and just enjoy that kind of key vista moment in Lymington. If we click on again, and then just pulling away, just to give you a feeling of that corner where it opens up onto the water. And then again, just another close-up around the other side, so you can see the way the canopy covers the little seating area, the recessed seating area off the main quay thoroughfare, and also the glazing there, panoramic glazing, so that when you're inside the cafe, you sort of sat on bar stools, you've got a really nice view out in all directions.